in pursuit of health and wisdom. Sapio with Buck Joffrey.
Welcome to Sapio with Buck Joffrey. I'm Buck Joffrey, and you know what? A lot of people have been asking me about the supplements I take, and of course, that's a fair question. After all, I talk about supplements a fair amount, and I think that I have nothing to hide. In fact, if anything, I'm happy to share with you, and I would love feedback from anyone who says I'm doing the wrong thing or I'm doing the right thing and wants to share information from me. Because at the end of the day, yeah, I'm a physician, but this is a lot of cutting edge stuff. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm going to use this episode to explain why I take the drugs and supplements that I do for the purpose of longevity. So here we go. First of all, let me tell you that none of this is medical advice. Now, I actually am a surgeon. There's plenty of people who are giving medical advice, even who are not even physicians, but I still am not going to give you medical advice. The way I want you to take this is, this is my perspective, and you can frame your own perspectives based on what I do, and then you should have some conversations with your own doctor. You should do your own research and then make some decisions. The thing is that some of the things I'm going to say, your doctors probably will have no clue what I'm talking about because this is not mainstream stuff, right? This is more along the lines of cutting edge longevity, playing offense, what I call medicine 3.0. So let me start telling you the way I think about various drugs and supplements. And this is important. First of all, understand this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So like every multi-billion-dollar industry, people are going to try to sell you stuff. And I'm not saying that all of the stuff that people are trying to sell you or the stuff that's on the market is worthless. Not at all, but a lot of it is. In fact, some of it could even be dangerous. And I've seen plenty of examples. We've talked about that on this show. And don't forget, for those of you taking 100 supplements a day because you think that that's going to do you good, some of those things have negative interactions. Even if they're okay on their own, you might take 2 + 2 and expect to get 4, but get 3 instead and do something negative. Anyway, the other issue is that supplements in general are not regulated in any sort of way by the FDA. So you can have a bottle that says it contains something, but it really doesn't, or it has very little of it, of what it says it does, or maybe it's not, stuff that, maybe it's stuff that's going to expire and you're supposed to keep it in the refrigerator, but you don't even know that. These are all tricky things. It could have other stuff in it, like toxic metals. We talked about that before too on the show. So the thing is, along that lines, I'm balancing a little bit. See, I know many of you have also asked me to reveal specific brands of supplements that I use, and I don't think I should do that. I thought about it. Maybe one-on-one, I'm happy to do it with you, but I don't know, it gets a little sticky. So this is actually, and the other thing is it's a moving target based on the latest information that I get. I will tell you that there's a source that I generally trust a lot. I have no financial arrangement with them, although I should, because frankly, I keep talking about them. They're called consumerlabs.com. It's a really good resource. I think it's like a subscription. It's not super expensive. And if you're going big into supplements, probably worth looking at that. There's a ton of data. And frankly, I've made most of my supplement decisions based on the research they have. So if you want to know, for example, what kind of cocoa flavanol that I'm looking at or cocovia, then it's going to be there. It'll be in Consumer Labs. Okay, let's start actually getting into this. So when I think about the drugs and supplements I want to take, I break them down by what I'm trying to accomplish. And the number one cause of death in the United States is cardiovascular disease. There's quite a bit of cardiovascular disease on my mom's side too, even though she doesn't have it. All of her brothers have had heart attacks in their 60s and all that kind of stuff. I'm really careful, even though my cholesterol's never been high. I've never had any reason to believe that I have cardiovascular atherosclerosis, that I have any issues that, have given me a risk for heart attack. You know what? I don't know. So I I don't know if I'm somehow have a higher risk that I don't know about. So I'm playing offense. And this is an area I've decided to, because of that reason, overtreat and artificially, lower my risks, and specifically lower my cholesterol. So what I mean by that is I'm trying to suppress my cholesterol levels way below the normal range. And I do that because there's actually some evidence that in doing that, I can not only stop or really slow down the process of atherosclerosis, the thickening of blood vessels that ultimately leads to all these diseases, but even reverse some of the stuff that's already there. So if you go back to episode 20 and 22 of Sapio, we called it the Battle of the Cardio IQ that I had with my doctor and my buddy, Dr. Alan Viglione. You can see back there that my numbers were actually really quite good already. I mean, cardio IQ is like this, by the way, what that is it's a blood test, right? You can order one. You got to find it, cardio IQ, look it up. You can get one ordered from your doctor if they're not going to be annoying about it. It's based on a Cleveland Clinic, which is big into the heart thing. All of these things that you wouldn't even think are involved with cardiovascular disease, a test for basically everything. Anyway, we did a show where Alan and I both did our cardio IQs, and I will say that Alan, despite his relative youth to me, I kicked his ass. I kicked his ass in just about everything in the cholesterol category. Now, at that time, I was just on a drug for lowering cholesterol called Repatha. It's what's called a PCSK9 inhibitor. And I'm not going to go into that so much, but I took it once a month, and I still take that once a month. By the way, that is a prescription drug, and it's actually difficult to get. So I will tell you, it's a tough one to get. But I did that since then, though. I also added another small dose of a statin called Livalo, which is good for people who don't tolerate regular statins, by the way. And so it might be worth, if you have tried statins and you get some brain fog and all that kind of thing, Livalo would be something to try. It certainly, regular statins did give me kind of a brain fog thing, I thought. So anyway, Livalo, I added a small touch of that. Why? Because I thought I still had room to suppress my lipids even more, and I just want pure domination over Alan Viglione. So that's why. Again, some would argue this is overkill, but cardiovascular disease is totally avoidable. I really believe atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease is something that if you're ahead of it, like you don't have it yet, you shouldn't die of it. Yet it is the number one cause of death in the United States, and so that is one of the low-hanging fruit that Alan and I also talk about. Now, there was a category on that cardio IQ that Alan actually did beat me, and I'm still kind of not happy about that, but he did. And it was this category that was looking at the relative inflammation in heart vessels. And this is measured by something called HSCRP. Again, that's HSCRP. C-reactive protein is general, but H is related to this heart. So HSCRP. And mine was in the moderate level. It wasn't high, but it was in the moderate level, whereas Alan's was low. So he beat me there. And to be honest, I had no idea what HSCRP was. So I was like, okay, it's a little high. Maybe it's not optimized. Maybe I should look into it. And what I discovered was kind of shocking to me. I found studies that suggested that elevated HSCRP actually was more predictive than even LDL. The bad cholesterol, it's more predictive for major cardiovascular events if it's elevated than LDL. And that I thought was, wow, no one talks about that, but it ends up being the case. So anyway, I got Alan to prescribe me a low dose of a gout drug, which there's studies on, called colchicine. And now I take that once a day. It's about 6 milligrams. Take it once a day. And I'm hopeful that, further reduces my cardiovascular risk. It brings my HSCRP down. And next time Alan and I do the Battle of the Cardio IQ test, we'll see if, that's still something where he beats me. I'm guessing that this time it will be a clean sweep and that it will be true embarrassment for Dr. Viglione. Oh yeah, I also take an enteric-coated baby aspirin for good measure. And that is, that's a lot of people do for cardiovascular stuff. But anyway, so there are supplements I take that cover multiple organ systems, including the heart. There's methylated B vitamins. I'll just mention the brand. In this case, it's called Methyl Protect. And that goes to helping the heart. As it turns out, I am part of 30% of the population that has a single genetic mutation in a gene that codes for a protein called MTHFR, okay, methylfolate reductase. You don't have to know that. The bottom line is the defect results in elevated homocysteine levels, and elevated homocysteine levels are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The good news is, as soon as I take that Methyl Protect, that B vitamin, bam, my problem's gone. 30% of the population has the same problem. Does 30% of the population know that they can just take this little B vitamin, make that problem go away? No, they don't, but they should. That's what Medicine 3.0 is about. Now, I'm also slightly vitamin D deficient. I need 10,000 units of vitamin D to get in normal range, so that's what I take. Low vitamin D levels are associated with all sorts of problems, including cardiovascular disease. Again, easy to fix. Methylfolate and vitamin D are actually a great transition to the stuff I take for my brain. And if you listen to Dr. John Foley a couple of episodes ago, and he was talking about Alzheimer's disease and brain optimization, he mentioned methylfolate and vitamin D as two of his favorites. He also mentioned DHA, which is essentially a long-chain omega-3 fatty acid that's found in fatty fish. It's also critically important for cognitive function and brain optimization. There's also evidence that DHA has cardiovascular benefits as well. So for me, this was, again, a no-brainer to add. So DHA, right? So they come with a DHA EPA usually, and you want more DHA than the EPA, that kind of thing. So staying in the brain optimization lane, I have a few other things that I take. I take a magnesium supplement called Magtine. And the reason I take that one is it's good at crossing the blood-brain barrier, which is not an easy feat. It's also really useful for sleep. Magnesium is a big one for the brain. Magnesium, you need lots of active magnesium for cognitive function. I'm also a big fan of something called curcumin. Okay, this is derived from turmeric, and it's known for its powerful anti-inflammatory antioxidant properties. Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, fancy words, but they're believed to play a role in the development of neurodegenerative diseases like John was talking about, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's. So curcumin could potentially help in the prevention or management of those conditions as well. So some studies have shown that curcumin can combat the actual beta amyloid plaques, which is interesting. Again, beta amyloid plaques are necessary. It is a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. So it could also be slowing the progression of people who already have Alzheimer's disease. So curcumin, again, there's brands of those, but go to consumerlabs.com, check it out. And there's also growing interest in curcumin's role in treating various psychiatric disorders, by the way. Its potential neuroprotective properties can potentially have some benefits for depression and anxiety. And finally, for the brain, I take one other one, which is a type of cocoflavanol. In this case, it's cocovia. Again, what this does is it increases nitric oxide levels in the brain, and that results in an increase in oxygen delivery, potentially to combat against memory decline. And really, again, it's one of those brain optimization things. You can also get cocoflavanols from eating some blueberries, and I'll tell you, I love blueberries, so that's good news for me. Okay, so all the drugs and supplements I mentioned up to this point are organ targeted, specifically at either the heart or the lungs. The rest of the drugs and supplements I take are for what are called geroprotective benefits. And what do I mean by that? Well, of course, by decreasing your chances of cardiovascular disease and stroke and all that, you're certainly taking supplements to help with longevity, right? But geroprotection, that word refers to a specific system, not a specific organ system, I should say, but rather something upstream to all of these diseases of aging. These supplements are targeting the aging process itself. There are multiple different pathways that are thought to be involved with biological aging. A few of these are the mTOR pathway, the sirtuin pathway, and the AMP kinase pathway. I use basically my idea for supplements for germ protection is I want some supplements to affect each one of these pathways. It's as simple as that. So in the context of aging, the overactivation of this mTOR pathway has been linked to accelerated aging. And while its inhibition has been shown to, and I should say that its inhibition has been shown to extend lifespan in a whole bunch of models, a bunch of organism models, not just mammals, but worms and flies and everything. The mTOR pathway influences processes like protein synthesis, autophagy, which is the cleaning of damaged cells, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. But the bottom line is, by far and away, this is the drug with the most literature, this is the pathway with the most literature behind it. If you downregulate this, you're going to live longer. So less activity of the mTOR pathway. Now, there's a drug that inhibits that pathway, and it's called rapamycin. It's easy to remember because mTOR, that pathway that I just said, stands for mammalian target of rapamycin, right? Okay, so rapamycin is probably the drug with the most evidence of longevity benefits out there. It is absolutely the case. But for some reason, I got to tell you, big names in longevity don't talk about it much. They don't really think it's as useful, whatever. I don't really understand. There's simply no drug with more longevity data in the world than rapamycin. Maybe it's because people associate it with the hospital, where it's used in the hospital. When I was a surgical resident, we used to use high doses of it in transplant patients to suppress their immune systems. The reality is, though, that at low doses, the data is, this is a very safe drug in general, one that you should consider talking to your doctor about because it is prescription. And again, I take it once per week, low dose, 6 milligram pulse. Sirolimus is the generic name for that, by the way. And again, it's not something that a lot of your doctors are going to know about, and they're going to push back on it. But anyway, that's what I do there. The other pathway I'm targeting is the sirtuin pathway. Sirtuins are involved in a wide range of cellular processes. They're believed to play a key role in promoting longevity in multiple models. That's been shown the case. This is the one that is influenced by caloric restriction, right? So it's the one where ultimately, if you think about intermittent fasting and all the things that we do there, it stimulates that sirtuin system. And so that's why the fasting element is such a big deal in longevity. And there's lots of supplements that also help to upregulate this pathway, including things that will increase levels of NAD in your body. So that's why I take an NAD precursor called NMN. Again, there's lots of different brands of that. Look it up. And the best ones in Consumer the Consumer Reports thing is actually not the most expensive one. So check that out. Another precursor is NR. I don't take that one. I take NMN. I can take either or. I don't really know any reason to take one or the other. It just happens I take the NMN. So other drugs and supplements that are included to stimulating this pathway. Resveratrol, big one that people talk about all the time. Metformin. I tried metformin. Made me feel like I had cyanide poisoning, so I stopped. Berberine is another one, but I'm not on that one either. It's hard to know which supplements to choose, but my thinking is that I do intermittent fasting and I take NMN, so that should cover this sirtuin pathway for me as well. Now, finally, I hit the AMP kinase pathway with two supplements called quercetin and fisetin, which I take as a single mixed pill. The AMP kinase pathway is a key energy sensor in cells, and it's activated in response to low energy levels. So in the context of longevity, one of the key features of the pathway is that it promotes autophagy. And what autophagy is it basically is like eating up of nasty, damaged cells that if they stick around, they might become like senescent cells, which are zombie cells. And zombie cells can release toxic chemicals and promote cancer, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is quercetin and fisetin helps with all of that stuff potentially. And so I take that for that particular AMP kinase pathway. So again, you can see how I'm thinking. There's a reason for everything I'm taking. Okay, finally, I got started taking 3,000 milligrams of taurine every morning. Why? Well, a while back, I did a podcast about this. Taurine is an amino acid in energy drinks. And there was a study that showed that middle-aged mice that were deficient in taurine. I should say, okay, so there was a study that showed that middle-aged mice were deficient in taurine compared to young mice, and then that supplementing their diets with taurine at middle age not only restored their blood taurine levels, but also made them younger, biologically younger. They looked younger, their organs seemed younger. They also showed in that same study that taurine goes down in humans as we age. They talked about some of the epidemiological data. It's also lower in those with chronic disease. So again, I don't see a lot of downside in adding taurine because it's just an amino acid supplement, so I added it. So that's about it, except I do also take, I should say, a microionized creatine before workouts, and, you know, just to sort of get a little bit more energy system going there. And it actually turns out that it's one of the things for brain optimization as well. There's some data there, so that's interesting. I just mix it in with black coffee because I'm fasting, and it doesn't break your fast. Anyway, so that's what I take. If we talk someday, I can go more in details. But that's what I'm taking right now, and I think it's working pretty well. I look better. I feel better than I did 10 years ago. Seriously, I'm not even joking about that. I look better. Go look at Well Formula Podcast, which is my podcast been running for a decade. Go back to 2013. I look bad, man. Anyway, of course, all these things I talked about are fluid. Constantly adding, subtracting things from my regimen. And by the way, I use one of those pill dispenser boxes that your grandparents used to use. It's kind of embarrassing, but hey, it works. Anyway, that's it for this week on Sapio with Buck Joffrey. I'm Buck Joffrey, signing off.
Thanks for listening to Sapio with Buck Joffrey. A quick reminder that while I am, in fact, a surgeon, nothing I say should be construed as medical advice. Now, make sure to include your physician in any medical decisions you make. And also, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure to show your support with a like, share, or subscribe. Until next time, this is Buck Joffrey for Sapio with Buck Joffrey.